Yo,
Hey,
What's happening, man?
not a whole lot. Isaac's stressing me out, so I'm trying not to move in my chair too much because it was too squeaky last time.
it's
But
very sweet.
every time I have to move, I have to like mute my microphone and stuff, and you know, do some magic shit to get it to not do that. When all in reality, all I have to do is go to Sears and buy some WD-40 or whatever it may be and spray it down. But that involves leaving my house on a day off, and I try not to do that intentionally, you know. Um, So, Epic, you're all dressed up. What's going on, man?
Just got back from a wedding, so um, it was a good time. Watched a couple people say I do and move into holy matrimony, so that was good.
Did you have a good week or
Yeah, I've been doing okay. I got this stupid gallbladder thing, so
what's
it's
the
been
stupid gallbladder thing? If you
like I
don't
can't
want
eat. Every time I eat, I want to throw up.
to, oh really?
Yeah, or it makes me like get horrible pain. So it's good. It's good.
Can you take
Me
that
too.
out?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can.
Isn't that what you're trying to do? Take it out?
Yeah, I got an appointment on the 8th, July 8th, to see a surgeon, unless it decides to go freaky on me and just get removed that night at a ER or something.
All right, fair enough. Uh, Isaac, what about you, man? How's your week?
Pretty good, man. Nothing crazy. I feel like it's just been raining like all spring and summer, and today was like the first hot day we had, but it was nice. I
I
think
was
we're getting
trying
a
to
lot more
tell
of that.
these guys in Discord earlier, it's very humid here and very miserable. And they're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, we're in Jacksonville. It's always humid here, right?" So I
Yeah.
yeah. Well, then John pulled out some ridiculous ass number like 90 degrees humidity all the time, so I had to look it up and call
Yeah.
him out. So,
Well, it's a
um,
swamp.
yeah, it is. It is. They live in swampland.
So do I
Uh,
mean DC was built on a swamp. I mean, this is a swamp.
really?
Yeah.
Why didn't I know that?
Yeah.
Well, DC might not exist much longer, so we won't get into that tonight. So we'll see what. Go watch the
Dude,
news, people. Um, AB, how was your week, man?
Good, man. I've been working nonstop, and I'm so glad to have a break right now. Hey, look, I caught up. I caught up to the damn podcast, dude.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't know what you mean. I mean, we've been asking you to come on for like 3 or 4 weeks, maybe
Yeah.
more than that, and
Yeah,
so
dude.
finally, was it just because Epic wasn't going to be here that you finally showed up, or
Absolutely.
you mother
Look, you,
effer.
you do
I knew it.
exactly the
I
same
knew
thing.
it. Every time I get on to play a game, he's like, "Yeah, I'll play with you," and then he gets like stoned and disappears.
that's what I was tonight. I told him I would play this split gate with him, and then I disappeared for a couple hours. But Catherine got home, so I had to spend time with her, and she's been gone all week.
Dude, that's quite
So
all right.
yeah, yeah. So and then the pain of teaching John how to play a new game is always overwhelming for me because every 3.5 minutes there's questions about how he uses his gun and stuff like that. So um, I left that to AB this evening. So yeah, my week, very busy with work. It was a week, man. I don't know. I don't even think I talked to you much this week, Isaac.
No,
You
not really. Yeah. It's
it
been busy.
was yeah, it was a tough week. I every day I just regret it a little more. Just go and make a decision. No, it's fun. It's just there's a lot going on. A lot more hands on. The guy before me did not have a lot of systems in place, so the staff's like, so it's just gonna take some time. And we had a bunch of events this week, and then we had Father's Day last Sunday, right? And then we had some sort of Hawaiian party on Friday, and then we had the investors coming in, and I had to serve them a 3-course meal, and it was a thing. It was a thing. It was a week. I was ready for this week to be done. Um, but yeah, so we've been kind of getting into some weirder episodes lately. AB, we've been doing. What was yours? Your first one, Epic?
Did the oh God, what was it?
The Anunnaki.
Anunnaki. Yeah,
Yeah, the Anunnaki tablets, and what was the
the
Bernstein Bears thing?
Bernstein Bears, the Mandela effect, which
The
was
Mandela effect.
I don't know if you've ever heard that, AB, but go back and listen to our podcast for a couple weeks ago. It's
Hmm.
freaky as shit.
Dude, I heard a little bit of something about that Mandela effect. Is
Hmm.
that just events and stuff that you thought took place that Didn't go down exactly how you do it, remembered it and shit like that.
Okay, I got to interject really quick because
Yeah.
something effed up happened at work.
Okay.
We were in a chat, and the guy's like, he said something about like a genie, and I put a thing of Sinbad. He's like, "Oh yeah, the Sinbad genie movie," and I'm
Everybody
like,
knows Sinbad was a genie.
Yeah.
I'm like-
Everybody knows.
"It never existed."
There was,
Now,
yeah, I guess it was. Now
Sinbad
you're
was definitely a genie, dude. There's no doubt about it. What was
Nope,
what
they-
was the saying? What was the slogan? He was like kablam or something like that. Or
Shazam.
Shazam, dude.
Kablam. I like Kablam better.
I know.
So, and then Isaac, you did let's recap your episode last week. What was I keep forgetting the name for that?
The Mercator projection.
And then he was messing us up with the size of maps and nothing's to scale really, and that had me going for a little while. I did the Nutty Putty Cave incident, which I know you know about, so I'm probably glad you missed that episode. Would you like me to recap that one again, guys?
Please
That was a
don't.
downer.
That was a downer. So
That's
today,
horrible, Isaac. Was that a pun?
No.
That was messed up. Today we're going to do a short bedtime story about a fishing ship called El Fausto. You guys know anything about it?
Nothing.
Never heard about it, dude.
Nothing. Epic, do you know anything about El Fausto?
I know a little bit based
Okay.
on what you said the last time I looked it up a little bit, and
Okay.
it's a pretty creepy story, to be honest.
Yeah. So this is going to be a little long-winded. If you guys need to interject or anything, just kind of raise your hand so I see you, because I'm reading off another monitor out of the periph. You know what I mean? So I'm just trying to pick myself up after that movie I watched this morning. I've never had a movie that's made me like physically hurt before. The Greasy Strangler. I do not recommend it. I do not know why I finished it. Wow. I'm having flashbacks to old man carrot dongs. So I don't. Yeah,
dude.
It was rough. Okay, El Fausto. El Fausto was a fishing boat with home in Tazacorte, La Palma Island, which is also the Canary Islands. It goes into a whole bunch, and all of my info here is from between Reddit and a couple things that I looked up, just a couple different articles on it. So if I butcher some names, a couple articles were in Spanish, and I didn't know what they were really saying. So I pretty much plugged it into Chat GTP and translated them as best as I can. I'm going to skip over a couple things. Maybe it's important, maybe not. But just a normal fishing boat. She was a robust ship that had earned the reputation of durability, and she was equipped with 43 HP Lister engine, whatever that means, with a top speed of 13 kilometers per hour. In 1968, Rafael Acosta was her owner, who for a long time had employed the brothers Ramon Eliberto, along with their cousins Miguel and Viterbo. I've never heard that name before. Viterbo Acosta. All of these guys were between 41, 47 years old. They were a four-man crew, and they were experienced. They've been doing this stuff since they were teenagers. And most of the time, it would just be like shipments. It was Canary Islands, so it was tough to get food and stuff out there, right? So they would go back and forth and bring food and all of that. That was pretty much their gig. Is that the boat?
Yep, this is the boat, the El Fausto.
Okay, cool. Close that so you'll ruin the story. There's a couple headlines there. July 20th, 1968, the Fausto, now it switches from English or Spanish to English and calls it the Fausto, leaves Tazacorte. And they met a gentleman, Julio, which is kind of where their misfortune started. We all know Julio's, misfortune. A lot of misfortune starts with Julio's. So
Julio, for sure.
during the early evening hours of the aforementioned date, the Fausto left Tazacorte's port, heading to El Hierro Island. It was about 80 kilometers, 50 miles south of La Palma. The cargo at the time was explosives, actually, that would later be employed for agricultural purposes on the island. Viterbo was not on board that day since a local festivity was being celebrated, and he had previously agreed to take responsibility for some of the official acts that would be carried out. About 7 hours later, El Fausto made her arrival to Frontera in the northern shore of El Hierro, where Ramon, Eliberto, and Miguel unloaded the cargo. That night, a fellow native of Tazacorte was in Frontera too. Thanks to his skills in mechanics, 27-year-old Julio Garcia had recently got a job as an irrigation maintenance chief at a nearby private estate. That day, Julio got a call from his wife, and his 2-month-old daughter was severely ill and had to go to the hospital, so he had to transport back to Tazacorte, which is how he ran it with his crew because they were heading back, and he wanted to jump on board with them. He tried to board the liner as soon as possible. He missed the liner, and the following one would not depart until 2 days later. So, of course, he didn't want to wait for his sick daughter. So he ran into the El Fausto, and he talked with the crew and offered to trade them cigarettes or something like that. Which, at that time was like, yeah, let's do it. But, Julio offered to pay them more for the ride, but they rejected it, and they took him on board. After fetching about 10 kilograms, 22 pounds of fruits for the 7 to 8 hour trip, El Fausto finally left El Hierro to La Palma at 2:30 a.m. of July 21st. None of the 4 men would set foot on land ever again. Oh my goodness, that was kind of long-winded. But have you guys ever heard of like a ship sailing with? Because El Fausto went with no radio, no safety equipment, and no like life vests, anything like that. Have you guys heard of a ship or anything doing like that, or was it just common for the time?
I mean, there was the Gilligan's Island ship, which the radio was
we
broke.
know how that turned out.
Yeah, it's a 3-hour tour.
Yeah.
SS Minnow?
Yeah.
Yes, that's what it was. Thank you.
So you guys, you live in boat country, right there, AB? You guys ever
dude.
go out without any shit?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but we're the city of rivers, dude. We're just going down to the rivers. We don't have to pack much.
Fair enough.
Yeah, dude, spend a lot of time on boats in Florida. Either you have a boat or you have a friend that has a boat.
There you go. So July 21st, this was that was about the time. So El Fausto's crew had covered this route countless times, adding varying weather conditions with no significant problems. So they've done this a million times. The saying, "We can do it with our eyes closed." The night the sea was calm. There was no visibility issues. There was a light mist, but nothing that they aren't accustomed to, right? However, those who knew the crew. So yeah, those who knew the crew had no doubt that the men were fully capable of navigating those conditions, like we talked about. They've done it a million times. El Fausto was expected to arrive in Tazacorte at around 10 a.m. of July 21st. However, the boat never made it there. Hoping to calm the fears of the 4 men's families, Rafael ordered another of his employees to sail from Tazacorte to Frontera. In other words, to make the El Fausto's planned course in reverse with the hope of eventually bumping into her and finding out what happened. The employee eventually radioed a report from the waters north of El Hierro that he had not seen El Fausto at any moment across the route, not even a trace. Up to this moment, Rafael had thought that the El Fausto had just experienced some kind of mechanic failure and was floating adrift somewhere mid-route, in which case she would have been found. He trusted his men and their capabilities, so with that report, he suspected that something much more sinister was going on. Rafael contacted the authorities and the SAR team, just to kind of put in the emergency broadcast, hey, something's going on, we need to find this boat, and because of their families. So that leaves us, I have an itinerary map, I'll show you guys at the end the route it was traveling. But you'll see, especially after, and this is a good follow-up to Isaac's episode last week, you'll see on the map that the route was like an inch on the map. It's nothing, right? Nothing that they should have gotten lost doing. And An emergency message on July 22nd was radioed to all the ships that could have been around the area and west from the archipelago. El Fausto is now officially missing at sea. At noon, a bomber took off from the island of Gran Canaria and headed west. Despite the thorough search and the optimal weather conditions of that day, sunny, no clouds, and excellent visibility, the plane's crew came back to the base empty-handed. They hadn't spotted the ship, nor did the subsequent aerial and maritime searches to deployed in the following days. Each of these searches was increasingly more extensive. Nothing, not a single trace of the ship. The idea of dealing no longer with a case of a boat lost at sea, but instead with a sinkage started to take shape in the collective mind of those looking. The other possibilities that were being looked at were not comforting either. Since the crew only had about 10 kilograms of fruits with them and very little fresh water, their chances of survival at sea were quite slim. There was no doubt that after a few days, they would not be looking for 4 men anymore, but 4 dead bodies on a boat. All right. I am going to copy and paste this to Epic for him to read the next paragraph so I can have a break and drink something.
All right.
Epic, I am linking it in the studio chat.
So shortly after midnight, the maritime authorities received a promising radio message from the El Fausto.
Nope. From the Duchess.
It's from the Desquad. How do you say it?
You can say the Duchess. Duquesa means Duchess, yeah.
Duquesa, a British reefer ship, that was coming from South America en route to the Netherlands. It had spotted a small fishing boat that seemed to drift in the ocean. The boat's crew was apparently using their flashlight to signal their position. So they reported at a location of 28 degrees by 15 north and 19 degrees by 45 west, which placed them at about 190 kilometers or 120 miles in the U.S. west of La Palma, which is way off their original route. But not long after the British vessel confirmed that the mysterious boat was indeed the El Fausto, Roman, Alberto, and Miguel and Julio were alive. They were all alive, but they were dehydrated, hungry, sunburned, and agitated, but alive.
So they found El Fausto drifting in the sea. Everybody seemed okay. You know, they're at that point, you got to think like, oh man, we did it. You know everybody's going to be pumped. We've got the fruit. I mean, the guys, but you know. So the good news quickly spread not only across La Palma but across the whole archipelago. It seemed that after almost 4 days of horror and hopelessness, eventually there would be a happy ending. With the help of Spanish-speaking crew members, the Duchess could communicate with El Fausto. So, and I think this is where they fucked up. This is I don't know why this happened, and we'll talk a little bit more about it after we talk about this. But yeah, so this is
dude. How can they just leave them? Like I'm so confused right now.
So after giving them food, water, and cigarettes, they offered to tow them back to La Palma. And unexpectedly for everyone, at this point, things took a turn for the strange. The 4 members of El Fausto's crew rejected the offer to being towed back. Instead, they asked to be given enough fuel and food to make it back to La Palma themselves. When asked what kind of mechanical breakdown or failure they had experienced, they replied that their boat was fine and nothing was out of the ordinary. Sometime later, the master and other members of the Duchess's crew would point that even though the 4 men were frightened by their near-death experience, they were far from being in the state of mental breakdown in which surviving castaways are often found. Nevertheless, the Duchess indulged into their request. The Fausto's crew received enough fuel for sailing 18 hours full ahead and a generous food and water supply for the trip. They watched the Fausto as she parted east back to the archipelago, and the Duchess radioed to Tazacorte an ETA of 1900 of that same July 25th for the El Fausto to return. So, yeah. Back in Tazacorte, there was an overwhelming atmosphere of joy and relief. By 1800 hours, the whole town had gathered at the port, waiting for El Fausto's return. A celebration had started, wine, a carnival, whatever, included with the four men's families being in the center of attention as they could barely wait with their eyes put on the ocean's horizon for their loved ones to come back. At 1900 hours, the El Fausto had not returned to Tazacorte. Everyone in the docks encouraged the crew's family members to not despair. They were assured they would probably arrive soon, maybe in an hour or two. Hours passed by the night came and then morning. Besides a few boats that sailed in earlier in hopes of encountering El Fausto, no ship came over the horizon. Refusing to let their fears creep back into the minds again, the wives and children slept on the docks, where they would spend most of the night and morning waiting for a boat that would never come back before giving up to the harsh reality that the El Fausto was missing at sea once again.
So, okay, why would they reject being towed? They were found. They didn't have food. They didn't have water. They didn't have anything with them. Radios. They had a flashlight to signal. Which, oh my god.
And we're gonna get into all of that. We're gonna talk about the theories. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, this still remains an unexplained thing. Before we get into that, I have a whole bunch of theories at the end. This was the route.
This is the planned route, as you could see. Like you said, it's literally
Like nothing, yeah.
It's an island hop. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's less than I don't know how many nautical miles that is, but it's pretty short.
So they were actually found like west of there, though?
So they were first saw by the Duchess at this point here that I'm going to share right now. So the Duchess first saw them way over here, way adrift.
Yeah.
Which would make sense with currents, right? Like, it depends on how the currents and everything are going, but I just...
The thing that kills me is the Duchess watched them start to go back towards the archipelago, right? And it doesn't really look like something that would be hard to do, especially these dudes have been sailing since they were teenagers, right? So it's some of the theories are pretty wild, but the story continues. July 26th, the search continues, is the title of this one. Very early in the morning, this time not one but four planes took off from Gran Canaria once more. The orders were clear to fly up towards the exact point where the Duchess bumped into El Fausto. Establish such points as the new ground zero search for this ship. And once there, look for her in an increasing radius. Several other ships, both military and civilians, joined the search as well. Aid was requested to mainland Spain, which sent Grumman's hydroplanes, as well as two Douglas DC-4s that would help to cover a search area in the ocean even larger than the whole Iberian Peninsula. At the time, the search for El Fausto became the largest search for missing persons in Spain's history, costing over 1 million pesetas. This was over a few-day period. In spite of an enormous effort and the dedication put into El Fausto's case, the search was in vain. El Fausto was nowhere to be found in the ocean, and now the mystery was even more baffling than ever. Finally, on August 7th, the search was called off. El Fausto was now officially listed as lost at sea. So, we're going to fast forward a little bit here. So, October 9th, 1968, the Ana de Mayo was kind of sailing the ocean, doing their own thing. I'm not really sure what the cargo was on the Ana de Mayo. I don't think it matters. But 2 months had passed by. Little by little, the family members of the El Fausto's crew were coming to terms with the loss of their loved ones. Whatever it was that happened to them, it was clear that they were never coming back. And that kind of stuff is tough too. Like, you see that with missing people's cases and everything. And at the end of the day, they just want closure, right?
Yep.
Just to know what happened. For the rest of the country and society, El Fausto had started to become a thing from the past life and was turning back to normalcy. Meanwhile, at some point in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, the Italian merchant ship Ana de Mayo was en route to Venezuela. It was a dark, cloudy morning, but besides that, sailing conditions were good. Everything was going smoothly and ordinary when they spotted something ahead of them in the distance. Upon closer inspection, they realized that they were looking at a small fishing boat, the kind that is not apt for cross-oceanic sailing, and the boat seemed to drift with no one at wheel. And, of course, if you guys can take a guess on what the call sign of the boat was, Epic, any ideas?
No, like what? Like, okay, I'm kind of.
So the boat, the call sign was TE 21268, and her name was El Fausto. At this point, where the Ana de Mayo encountered El Fausto, I don't think I can pull it up. Epic, see if you can find that map where they encountered, where Ana de Mayo encountered her.
Yep. 1 second here.
But Ana de Mayo stopped next to the small boat. First mate Luciano Acion along the deck boarded the ship, and no one was at the deck or in the cabin. So that, wow.
That's a little bit away from the Canary Islands, isn't it? They're what, down here?
I would say so. Man, that's insane. So no one was on the deck or cabin. Given the good condition of the boat, it looked like her crew had just vanished without any trace. Acion found no signs of violence or damage to the ship. He could not find any logbook aboard that could have explained what happened. So far, the El Fausto ship looked like a perfectly seaworthy ship that somehow ended up in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean with no one on board. That was all the El Fausto looked like until he opened the hatch on the deck that led to the engine room and climbed down inside. There was a dead man lying face up on the floor next to the ship's engine. He was naked, and a transistor radio was also found next to him. The man had clearly died much earlier, and probably due to the particular conditions of the oceanic environment, his body was mummified to a certain degree. Alarmed, Acion commanded the deck sailor to come back to the Ana de Mayo and have radio operators send the message, notifying the discovery. Meanwhile, he inspected the engine room more thoroughly, trying to get a clue of what could have happened. He found a small notebook that he thought may have belonged to the dead man. Upon opening it, the first thing that caught Acion's attention was the fact that a good number of the pages had been removed. Eventually, it would be determined that 28 pages were missing from the book. From the remaining pages, the first ones had set numbers and just a quick set of simple calculations and some notes in Spanish. The last one with some content on it was a page that immediately followed the last one that had been removed and contained much more elaborated text that Acion could not fully understand, but he could notice nonetheless that it seemed like some kind of farewell. Acion eventually returned back to the Ana de Mayo with the notebook and very few documents found in the cabin, mostly insurance stuff. After 5 hours from the encounter, the Spanish authorities were already aware of the discovery, so were the inhabitants of La Palma. It seemed that once the mysterious body arrived back to Spain for further examination, at least they would get some answers after the autopsy and things like that of what happened. The Ana de Mayo had informed of their intention to tow El Fausto with them all the way to Puerto Cabello, Venezuela. They also promised to send Spain an envelope with some documents found aboard. For some reason, they didn't mention the notebook until later. So after only less than 2 days from El Fausto's reappearance and subsequent decision to tow it to Venezuela, the Spanish authorities received a telegram from the Ana de Mayo, and the message is bizarre to the point of complete disbelief. They informed that while being towed, El Fausto had sunk bow first in the middle of the night, ripping and dragging the towing cable with it. They state the position southwest from La Palma and some northeast of Venezuela. At that point, it disappeared for a third time into the ocean.
It sank, right?
Yeah,
So it's gone.
They had it happened during the middle of the night. I don't know if that's an educated guess that it sank. I don't know because it took the tow with them. I don't know.
No, I mean,
Um,
you got to understand how small this freaking boat is. So I'm going to share
Right.
a picture of the El Fausto right now,
Yeah.
a better picture.
Mhm.
This is a small, like, I mean, it's supposed to be in the Canary Islands, right? This is not an ocean-going vessel. This is,
Yeah.
um,
It's it was just a string of crazy events that
Mhm.
when I first heard this story on another podcast, it was I was like, what? So I started to dig into it more, and nothing makes sense about it. Um,
yeah.
and I'll go over a couple theories and see if it makes sense to you guys. But yeah, and they
This is the crew of the El Fausto. So these are the three gentlemen right there.
okay.
And I also have a picture of the unannounced, the surprise. Yeah, Julio. So I don't, I'm not gonna say he looks suspicious, but
Shifty.
this baby he's holding, he has this smirk, so something's going on.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
some sort of other than happiness and joy.
Check this out. Yeah,
Oh man, he's real handsome.
he is actually.
All right, so we just have a little bit left. Of course, they left the dead body on the boat. They didn't move it over to Ana de Mayo, so there goes any chances of autopsies telling them how they died or anything like that. The dead body was on El Fausto, therefore it vanished with the boat and could not be retrieved. All that was left now was the documents retrieved by Acion. Eventually, the notebook arrived to La Palma, where it was shown to the victims' families. It was finally Julio Garcia's wife, Luz, who recognized it as her husband's notebook, in which Julio used to write down his personal notes and payments from those who had requested his services as a mechanic back in La Palma.
Oh.
That was a little weird to me that Julio's body was the only one left, and he was not the original member of El Fausto, right?
Good last
He was
dude.
he was
What in the
last
world?
dude that came along.
How'd they know it was his body?
They're assuming because of the notebook that it was next to him, and his wife
Okay.
recognized the handwriting in the notebook.
Because it was next to him. Okay.
So once in Spanish soil, oh, here we go, Isaac. This will answer your question. Once in Spanish soil, the notebook's content was examined. The last page contained indeed a farewell from Julio to his young wife, in which he instructed her how to proceed with the insurances he had paid for and how to sell his property so she would not find herself with no money after his death. The text ended as follows. And this was kind of weird too, I thought. Don't ever tell all that has happened to me to my son. You know that God wanted this fate for me. Love you. Julio's address was written at the bottom of the page, and Luz confirmed that it was her husband's writing. As for 2013, Luz is still alive and still kept the last page of Julio's notebook. She never married again. The most striking aspect of that note, besides the fact that Julio was aware of his imminent death, was that it started abruptly and lacked context, which, along with the missing pages, led some investigators to believe that for some reason Julio had documented in those missing pages the series of events that led to El Fausto's mysterious fate, but they'll never know, right? And that's why the 28 pages were ripped out. And there's just a lot of questions, like what was on the 28 pages, who removed those 28 pages and why, where's the bodies of the rest of the crew, why did they refuse to be towed back to La Palma by the Duchess, why did they say that nothing was out of the ordinary when they found him for the first time, and why didn't they offer any explanation of what had happened during their first disappearance? So, what do you guys think?
Pirates.
You want to go first?
Yeah.
Pirates?
Pirates.
Really?
Yeah, they had. So pirates board them, right?
Mhm.
They start taking the boat wherever. They accidentally get found the first time, but they're hiding on the boat. And they're like, "Hey, don't tell them we're here. Just ask for some food and tell them to go away." So that's what they do. And then, eventually they end up getting killed or whatever. And that's it.
That was actually one of the theories. Yes, something like that.
Yeah.
Epic. What about you?
I kind of think that that Julio had some sort of disease or something, and he just kind of wanted to disappear. And he realized that if he was on this boat and took care of the people on it, that he would be able to have his wife set up for life. You know,
Okay.
but maybe
Maybe.
I don't know.
If you say space aliens, I swear to God, you're never invited back to the
It's
podcast.
a mystery, Scoob. I don't know, dude.
It's a
I'm telling you right now, dude. Because I'm kind of reading along on what you're talking about and all that. Now I'm starting to think Julio's the good guy, dude. I'm starting to think Julio's okay. He was a solid pro, right?
Yeah.
Trying to look out for his family and do all that. I wonder how fresh he was whenever they found him.
Oh,
I
dude,
mean,
Well,
being
he
in
was
the
enough
sea
to
for
be
so long.
mummified. Yeah, so he was mummified. You mean the body or
Well, when I think like
That
mummy,
baby.
I think that's crazy.
that baby looks like it's got something going on.
I
That
bet
guy-
you he got on the boat to get away from him.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
Yeah,
no.
that looks crazy.
Rest in peace.
I don't know.
Willie.
Well, I think like mummification. I think of like preserved, like in the salt,
Yeah.
like out in the
Yeah.
out in the ocean and stuff like that.
Mhm.
I think you'll be pretty well preserved.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously wasn't in a state of decomposition for the most part, right? It was, because of the salt in the ocean and stuff. It would preserve it. So there's I'm only going to read a couple of the theories, the biggest theories. They were trying to reach Venezuela looking for a better life, whether they were going there and sending for their families later, or they were trying to get there, they were ditching their families. I don't know. I read this theory that they were trying to ditch their families and just going together to Venezuela. I don't know. The second theory was they witnessed something they were not supposed to at sea. Kind of pirates or something like that, Isaac. But that also ties into the next theory, which seems feasible too. They were trafficking guns, drugs, and illegal goods. They tried to avoid maritime authorities and ended up lost at sea. So a point that I forgot to mention, and I forgot to plug in here, that the boat's weight was off when they reached the first port. So I
There
don't know
you
whether
go.
it was heavier or lighter, but the boat's weight was a little off for something, and they never gave an explanation as to why.
So when was this? Like what period in time? Like was it the 60s?
Yep.
60s? Okay, so the
Mhm.
drug running wasn't a big thing right back then. Not as big as it is now,
Sure.
or was. But the arms trade was pretty big, and to have a visitor show up last minute with a special whatever bribe to get on the boat with his stuff, that might be.
And that's what some people think too, is that Julio was like, hey, help me transport these guns, we'll get a lot of money for it, or whatever it may
Yeah.
be.
Well, take that back though. I mean, think about what he said in the diary, that he doesn't want her to tell his family or his kids about what happened to him.
Right, and at
Well-
the same time that could be like embarrassment, right? Because he doesn't want his father or his kid to know that his father was a sailor and he died at sea, right? That type of stuff. So I'm going to read a little bit about this guy's theories. We're going to go back a little bit, and he's going to give you a little bit more backstory. They were trying to reach Venezuela looking for a better life, possible, but extremely unlikely. It's true that the post-war and the early stages of the Francosist regime had sentenced millions of Spaniards to live in suffocating poverty, forcing many Canary Islanders to venture into crossing the ocean on small boats, hoping to reach Venezuela like their grandparents did in the late 20th century. However, this phenomenon took place mostly during the 1940s when the famine was at its worst. By 1968, the Spanish economy had improved greatly, aided also by tourism in the 1960s. At that time, the situation was no longer so bad that people would risk their lives in the ocean for a better future. What is more, at the time, the regime had softened greatly, and little by little, Spain was becoming a more progressive society in contrast with the rigid and conservative politics of previous decades. Besides all of this, none of the four men would have even thought of trying to cross the Atlantic with only 10 kilograms of fruits and a few liters of fresh water, because they were all seasoned sailors, right? They would have brought more. It would have taken them approximately a month to reach Venezuela, and a lot of fuel. Even with the supplies provided by the Duchess, they would have known that would have been a suicidal move.
Okay, but why would you? The Canary Islands aren't that bad of a place. I mean, maybe back in the '60s it's different, but it's freaking gorgeous right now. Like if you look at pictures of the Canary Islands,
Yeah,
oh, I'm actually thinking about booking a trip there now.
not
In
on
a boat though. Not
Yeah.
no. Well, not
So-
even a plane. I don't know what I'll have to do, but
They witnessed something they were not supposed to at sea. Also, highly unlikely, since this mystery took place the most intense period of the Cold War. Plenty of people elucubrated with possibility of the four men, whatever that means.
wait. You just hit on something. It happened during the Cold War. What was going on in Cuba at that time?
Well, let me finish this paragraph and see if it says anything.
Uh,
Of the four men accidentally finding themselves in the middle of the U.S. and URSS submarine attack or conflict, keep in mind that only a few months earlier the USS Scorpion had sunk at a relatively short distance of El Fausto's point of disappearance, and many thought and still think that the cause of the sinking was a Soviet submarine attack. Regardless of the veracity of that claim, what is clear nowadays is that back in the 60s, the North Atlantic had countless American and Soviet nuclear submarines roaming across the ocean.
so
However, nothing in Al Fausto's series of events points in that direction. They could have removed themselves from the situation after being rescued by the Duchess, and the Ana de Mayo reported that no appreciable damage to the ship had been found. So, right, like it doesn't the first time they found doesn't scream to me like they were in trouble, right? So, I don't know if I guess it's possible from the second theory, but like they were going back home after they
Yeah.
were found by the Ana de Mayo, and I don't know if I feel like the Soviet subs or the U.S. subs would be out that way. You know? What I mean?
no. So you're talking off the coast of Europe. The
Yeah.
Soviet subs would not typically be in that location. Like even if there was like a transport ship hauling the nukes across the ocean, what Isaac, where'd they come from? Was it the like Japan area, up there on that side down, or did they come from up and around Europe to get to Cuba?
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. I think they would come from going around South America.
That's what I'm thinking, because it's a kind of a secret route, right?
Yeah, it'd be
Not
too
as-
hard to go through down through the Mediterranean. That would be they'd get found.
Yep. So that kind of that blows that away. Like I don't know. I'm really liking the whole drug running or the gun running thing.
Yeah, let me breeze through the rest of this, and then we'll bounce the theories back and forth between each other, just because I want to close this and get it out of the way. They were trafficking with guns, drugs, whatever illegal goods. They tried to avoid maritime authorities and ended up lost at sea. Unlikely, while living modest blue-collar lives, none of the four men or their families was in desperate financial need. None of them had big debts, and they didn't have any criminal records. They had no reason to put themselves or their families at risk of violence or prison for extra cash. And the last theory that this guy had was the boat was kidnapped by a Nazi fugitive that had been hiding in El Hierro and needed to escape to South America after knowing about Weisenthal's efforts to hunt former SS officials down. This was actually a possibility elevated to the category of urban legend that started to circulate across the archipelago at the time. Besides how oddly specific it is, he doesn't go into explaining. He just calls it an absurd hypothesis.
Hell, Hitler.
So the leading theory is when they were found the first time, they were actually in a worse state than they appeared. So they probably had a lot of setbacks, and they were actually either in shock or frightened, and at that point they're making horrible decisions, right? Like when you get to that point, you're making decisions that you think might be good. and they're not, right? Another thing that they were discussing is the fact that maybe they were all drunk and high on the fermented fruit at the time, right? Like 'cause that's all they had left, and
Ooh,
they
that's a good one.
weren't making rational decisions.
That's what I was gonna say, dude. I was gonna tell y'all that. I was gonna say they're probably partying. Julio got on the board.
Yeah. Hulu
Yeah,
got
dude.
on board, and it
Don
was all
Julio.
over from there.
Yeah,
So-
dude, they were going out.
Yeah, I really think that when they were found the first time, I am leaning into more that they were in a much worse state than they appeared.
Yeah, they didn't. Yeah.
And I think that Anna De Mayo, if they had pressed further or like used any kind of force to be like, hey, you guys need to get on board right now, they would have made it back.
I kind of agree with you. That makes the most sense. Let me I'm going to throw up a map of the currents of the Atlantic Ocean so you can kind of see. Actually, you know what? I'm going to share first where it sunk. So
Okay.
where the ship actually sunk. It's very close to where the Anna De Mayo encountered and started towing her, but it's way over here. So the Canary Islands are up in here.
Okay. Yeah, you can see Spain
So
up there too.
it's down a bit and over. So it finally sunk down here. So they encountered them right about here, and they started towing them, and overnight it sunk. So that kind of shows you this next thing I'm going to put up. So keep this visual in your head. Apparently, there we go. Now this is the current of the Atlantic Ocean. So here are the Canary Islands, right up in here. The current goes down and then over.
Okay.
So this whole flow completely correlates to where they found this boat. So there's no mystery there for me. Like I totally like 100%. That's what if you lose an engine or something, you're gonna eventually go that way, one way or another. But the whole premise of them denying help, like even if you were high as a kite, like, but dehydration, everything, like you don't act. And plus, what you said earlier about being proud, right? They don't want to act like, oh, we got lost, we can't be like whatever.
But also think of things like the Dyatlov Pass incident, right, man? They which we'll get into sometime, but they were all experienced climbers, yet for some reason they tore their way out of the tent naked and found in like different spots and stuff. Like in an altered state of mind, people do some crazy shit.
Yeah.
Like I knew this dude that kicked a tiki torch when he was drunk and set his foot on fire.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Who would do that though? That's crazy.
There was no fire. There was no feet on fire.
How would you know? So yeah, it was. I don't know. This has always bothered me. Isaac's theory makes a lot of sense too, but wouldn't you think the Anna De Mayo would have boarded them and when they brought the fruit on board and checked it out?
Yeah,
So-
I don't know how that works. How they
Let's look at this really quick. I want to put up the Duchess or the Duquesa,
Okay.
so you can see the size difference, right? These are ocean-faring vessels, right? This is a freaking ocean liner. I mean, it's not the Titanic or whatever that size, but this is a big ship. This is not a little ship. And think about how small that fishing boat is, and they're out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean.
Hey,
Right.
buddy. It's not the size of the boat. Okay.
It's the motion of the ocean.
That's the motion in the ocean. I'm sorry. We all agree with that for sure.
Yep. 100%.
And here's a picture of the Anna De Mayo, which is the second ship that found them, and it looks like they're one of their captains here. So it's also a massive ship, right?
Yeah.
So this is a big ship. This is the guy that went over and found the body
Yeah.
of the towing.
And in
Where
both of those
the
ships
face
being
of 'em.
experienced, don't we think that they would just like if anyone boarded, they would just check it out? Like
I mean, they probably did. But so if your theory of gun running, the guns are gone. Something happened. The deal went bad. The other
bodies
people
are gone too.
You know, that could happen. If the deal went bad, they're going to throw the bodies over.
But why not all of them?
because this Julio was the guy that arranged it.
But
That's just a theory.
at the same time, like I think it's a good theory. I'm just playing devil's advocate here a little bit.
Yeah.
But wouldn't, if he arranged it and he was working for the gun runners, wouldn't they take him with them and not just leave him to die?
It's a lot cheaper if you just leave him to die.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough.
But AB you were going to say something.
I forgot. I don't even know what I was talking about. It was a comment on how that guy looked. It looked like he was wearing the face of Julio.
Yeah, he looked like he was wearing the face of.
You got to be kind of crazy to be a sailor back in the 60s,
Yeah.
70s, right? Like, oof.
So, it was a super interesting story for me. I liked it. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing it. I don't know how a boat goes disappearing 3 times. I don't think it can ever happen in these times with all the technology and stuff that we have. But I guess things do go missing at sea, right?
all the
The
time.
ocean's huge.
Yep.
Yeah, ocean's big. Ocean's scary. I would never get in a boat controlled by a Logitech controller. So yeah. What do you got for us next episode there, Epic? Didn't you say you had a topic?
I do, but I don't really want to tell it just yet.
Okay.
It's something I need to do a little more research and see if I actually want to bring out, because I don't want to sound like a complete conspiracy nut after the Anunnaki, right? Like,
Sure.
so there's a theory that this isn't the first civilization, right? So the mud floods, right? So if you get into this is all stuff I've watched on different things when I've been either drunk or whatever. The mud floods, basically the United States or everywhere, was a thriving civilization, because you see the architecture and stuff. But we'll get into it next
Yeah.
episode. And
We're about to do a double episode right here.
I know I could totally do it.
So we have that episodes coming up next. It's also Epic's movie pick next week.
Yeah.
I think you want to talk about your movie pick.
Absolutely. So for this this movie release, it's a way more tamer movie than what Isaac picked and what Rob picked, and I'm sure what AB would pick. This movie is more of a conceptual thing to me. It means a lot to me because when I was younger, I just fell in love with this movie just because of the different things it could be. And it's called Groundhog Day with Bill Murray and oh gosh, I can't remember her name, but it's a really pivotal movie in kind of storytelling. And there's so many theories around this movie that we're going to get into and talk about quickly, but
Cool.
hopefully you enjoy it.
I look forward to it, man. Isaac, you got anything for this week you want to bring up in news?
No, not really. There's nothing much going on this time of year in sports. Well, I mean, in sports there is, but not in the NFL.
Yeah. Epic for you?
Well, let's talk about sports really quick. What about the flagrant fouling of the what's her name?
Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin Clark. Yeah. Like, is there a hit out on her or something? What's going on?
It's been that way the whole season. I don't know. No one, any of the other girls like her in the entire WNBA.
I thought it was a race thing at first, but it's totally not. Like every girl, like white girls, like American girls, like everybody is just beating up on her. And
they're just jealous. That's how these girls roll.
But she really is like pretty. I think she could play in the NBA. To be honest with you, the way she's sinking threes like crazy.
She's good. Yeah.
Didn't even have to get up to the line. What do you think, AB?
I seen that footage of her getting fouled. That was pretty brutal. I was like, wow, they really did it up for her.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't have anything really for video games this week. I've just been playing the Switch too.
How's that?
It's awesome. I love the new Mario Kart. It's 24 people. There's a mode I've been playing nonstop called Knockout Tour, which is so it's you start with 24 people and then it sends you on a tour. It's an open world Mario game, but there's tracks inside the world, and it sends you on a tour of like 4 of the tracks in one race. And by the time the first track gets there, you have to be in the top 16 or else you get eliminated. By the time you get to the next one, you have to be in the top 12 or you get eliminated. Kind of like a Fall Guys type of thing, right? But
Okay.
Mario Kart. So it's super fun. Other than that, I've just kind of had a hole in my heart since Expedition 33. I haven't really found anything to fill that yet. I'm looking forward to when Isaac finally finishes it and we can talk about it.
Yeah.
Isaac, where are you?
Yeah, where are you in the game?
I've just beat the first Axon.
Oh, cool.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Hey, so he's getting there. He's getting
Yep.
there. And Xbox announced a new handheld, which looks pretty sweet.
Yeah, it does.
The price looks sweet too. Are you going to
Oh,
get
my-
one, AB? $900?
Nah, probably not, dude. I barely even play the shit I have right now.
Yeah.
I got
Yeah.
VR headsets, switches, all of that.
Switches.
Wait, you got a VR headset?
Yeah, dude.
Which one?
MetaQuest 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's pretty good. So a girl we went to school with actually worked for Oculus, but then Meta when they bought him. Do you remember the Sweet girl? Sharon Sweet. Remember there was a teacher, Mrs. Sweet.
Yeah, I remember Mrs. Sweet.
Kind of.
So her daughter actually worked for Meta and
Dang.
or worked for Oculus before they got bought by Meta, and she has
Yeah.
a farm down in her hometown now, that rescue farm, which is really awesome.
That's awesome.
Dang.
What, AB, you've been playing something new. You want to talk about us? Talk about
Splitgate?
it with us? Yeah.
Oh, dude, Splitgate's pretty fun, man. I like the gun mechanics in it.
What's like the whole concept of it, though?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't even know if they have a storyline or anything. I don't think they have like a campaign or anything like that. I think it's just all.
But
multiplayer.
so what sets it apart from like Call of Duty or something like that?
Oh, I don't know. I guess the. Oh, you're talking about the portals and all that.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, have you ever played the game Portal,
Yes.
dude?
My
good
kid.
game. 10 out of 10, dude. I love that game.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah. Do you get some
Well,
cake?
Yeah, yeah, dude. Yeah, so imagine if you took that game but put it into a first-person shooter type battle royale or like Team Slayer type
Mhm.
game, and you could use those portals in
Mhm.
specific areas on the map to loop around, navigate the map, and they have objectives like capture the flag or plant the bomb type deal. They got a
So
couple
you don't find it like super disorienting when you use a portal because I go through the portal. I'm like, what the fuck? Where am I? This time?
At first, and it's definitely one of those you have to practice to get good at it things. And at first, I never used the portals until I figured out that they were using it against me.
Yeah. And it's like if there's a guy standing above you, you can make a portal and then shoot through the portal and shoot the guy, right? Like the bullets will come out.
Oh.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
hell with that.
It ain't that bad. Well,
No.
the portals can only be on certain walls. Like there's certain
Yeah.
services you can only shoot
Well,
portals.
okay. Well, can they slide and shoot me at the same time, just like
Yep.
freaking whatever that damn game was?
Yeah, but it's a lot slower paced than that.
Okay.
Oh, my dog's in the podcast this week. I didn't know.
Hey,
What's your dog's name, dude?
Lola.
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 whatever Lola wants, Lola gets.
All right, guys. Well, this is a fun one. AB, remember, don't disconnect until you're uploaded, and we will see everybody next week for the Groundhog Day movie review. So, as always, be kind to yourselves, each other's, and your insides, because Pizza After Midnight's a young men's game. Later.
See ya.
See ya.
Peace.